So I'm on to the second week of the kind of texture project I introduced last week. Last week I was showing you a few different examples of oil paintings and acrylic paintings where I'd used knives and things like that. I thought this week look at texture in regard to watercolours or water-based mediums, or kind of more watery. So a few suggestions of what you might want to do. Theme-wise, you could use anything you want. I know the next theme I've got in mind is derelict, that's the theme. So it could be anything that's derelict. So if you wanted to use that as the theme, that would be absolutely fine. If you do, I've got some images here. Some of this folder here are sort of derelict things, cars, boats, buildings, that type of thing. So that will take us up to the end of this week. So this will be the last week of March. April, we've got 3 weeks in April because I'm actually having a break on the last week of April. So I'm going to have a week off, which I'll put in the email. And there's also one in May, probably be back about 3 weeks, and I'll have another break in May. So there's 2 little breaks I've got coming up. So in terms of textures, these are old demos from previous times, and I thought I'd just sort of run through these again. So there's things like, in terms of water-based mediums, different ways you can create textures. So one way is like flicking paint. So it would be literally just getting a brush and just kind of flicking some paint at it. So that can give some quite interesting textures. Another approach is using more of a spray, and that would be using a toothbrush, which I don't have at the moment, but I have got some toothbrushes somewhere. Oh, here we go. So, doing that sort of thing, I can add a little bit to that. Get a little splash or spray, or you can get a finer spray than that, that's a bit finer. So yeah, that can be quite handy to add a different sort of element. Also, the paper itself will give you a texture. Some papers are very textured, rough textured papers. So if you kind of drag a bit of paint over a rough textured paper, it will pick up. This is more of a medium textured paper, so you can pick up a bit of texture there, but a rougher paper will give you a more pronounced texture. You can also sort of imprint things in. So this was just using a bit of bubble wrap, kind of printing that in. And you can create, and you can do similar things with cling film, and Susan's painting is rather lovely. I think you've used some of those sort of ideas, with cling film and things like that, to create interesting background textures that you could then work into. I think this little one, I don't know if you can see that from here. I think this was working with something and then flicking some wet water, some water or something into the paint. And that gives you these little blots and marks. Again, that can break up a flat area. That's that one. This one, so that's actually cling film or bubble wrap. This was salt, just using like a rock salt, or I've got what you call it, sea salt. That's it. Something that's quite coarse grains. So if you put a wash down and drop a bit of salt in it, it will suck out the moisture out of the paint, and it just leaves these little kind of areas of texture. It looks a bit like barnacles or something like that. What else you've got? This one here. This bit here is where I've used grated bits into it. So like put a wash down and then use some coloured pencil or some pastels, and just a sharp knife and just grated powder into there. So that, again, that can add a different sort of look to the paint. This sort of thing is where I've scratched, so basically wet paint and then just scratching the paint away, pushing the paint away like a fingernail. Or the other thing is like scoring into the paper itself, and you get like a darker mark then. So these are really nice to just kind of play around with and explore textures. So have a sheet of paper and just play around, see what you can do. You could make them into little pictures if you wanted to, but it wouldn't be too hung up on it being an exact copy of something. This one here is using a palette knife, so I think I'll probably put a wash down and then pushed and pulled the paint around with a palette knife. So that can be quite a nice, interesting one to do. In terms of the theme for myself, I thought this quite appeals to me. So a couple of years ago we had a boat trip out into the estuary, and these are the Mansell forts, which were like part of the defences during the Second World War. So yeah, we stopped. It was a painting trip, so we stopped for about an hour or so and did a quick painting of the boards. By the time we got to the end of the painting, the boat was in the other direction. So I looked over my shoulder. But it's good, really good fun. I've got lots of photo references, and I always thought it'd be nice to work them up into something. So I was thinking, well, that might be quite nice. So this, again, I just sketched it out very roughly. So this is more of an experiment rather than a painting. So I just deliberately cropped it a bit. But just to show you different ways of working, really. So again, there was a bit of splatter. Well, I'll do some other washes first. Perhaps use a bigger brush. So basically, put a flat wash there, but we could go over with another wash, perhaps a darker area. Let's try a darker area here. Something like that. And I'm wondering about trying that thing of just popping some lighter paint, some water in there, just flicking a bit of cleanish water. So I don't want to get it too wet, but I could perhaps. Is that working? I don't know if that's working or not. Yeah, that's a little bit. So it just kind of breaks it up a little bit. This worked quite nicely just using the toothbrush this morning. So again, that was into a wet, which I quite like. So I'll try a bit more here. So let's get that. So this needs to be a little bit thicker paint, really, otherwise it's all going to run off. So that would be that. Using things like credit cards can be quite good. Let's mix a nice bit of paint there. It could be a piece of cardboard or a credit card. So I'm thinking all these little bits down the bottom, I can get some nice sort of sharp marks down here. And they're not perfect marks, but they've got a nice sharp quality. Plus sort of pulling the paint down, that sort of thing. Perhaps slightly wetter, a bit wetter. Either a credit card or a knife. I've got a collection of painting knives here somewhere. So we can put smaller areas in. And then the nice thing here is you can just kind of pull the paint around and get some other sort of textures in that way. So it's really encouraging a bit of playing around and experimenting. Try and keep the paint looking fairly lively, as well as trying to make it look like that. I want it to look like a nice, lively, interesting painting. So that's really the scene for this week, and if you want to keep it going for a bit. Any questions on that? The other thing I just thought I'd mention is a couple of students had asked me about painting holidays, so I've organised it with a little painting holiday in Southwold, which will be in June, 26th and 27th, which one or two of you are interested in. So the idea is sort of your own accommodation and things like that, and getting there, and I'll provide the teaching. It could be, if you wanted to just come down for a day, that would be absolutely fine as well. And not if you can make the whole weekend, but if you want to do a day there. So that's the Southwold one. I've got about half a dozen people interested in that already, so go one or two more if anybody else wants to go. Don't want to make it too huge, but there's room for a few more. And the other one that planning is Italy, and the idea is that, well, my idea was, some of my students in my Thursday group saying could we go abroad, because I've done a few abroad holidays before. I didn't particularly want to go via another company because there's a lot of pressure to generate lots of students then. But I'm thinking to go to Italy anyway, so I was thinking if there's a few people who wanted to do a painting holiday, it's pretty easy to fly into Pisa from Southend Airport, and then it could be like a few days or up to about a week, and we could perhaps find a location reasonably near to Pisa, either get a car, hire a car, or get trains out. So that's an idea if anybody's interested in that one. So that one I'm looking at the 14th of September for that one. I've got a couple, again, I've got probably 3 people that are sort of pretty into it, and maybe 1 or 2 others interested. So that's a little bit of information there if you're interested in holidays, painting, that sort of thing. Right, okay. Let it crack on.